In today's new video, we're going to be talking about the importance of footwear when it comes to weightlifting, walking, and just kind of everyday activities. And also, I'm going to share with you guys a bunch of things that I've learned over the course of the past year. And also, I'm going to share with you guys my current recommendation and what training shoe that I currently use. Hey, how's it going, everybody? Remy Sovereign here from RemySovereign.com. Today we're just going to jump right into it. What we're going to be talking about is the importance of footwear when it comes specifically to weightlifting, but also we're going to talk about walking, just kind of daily activities as well. And what I'm going to do just to start this video off is I'm going to share with you guys the kind of chronological order of what I went through with regards to training shoes. Now, I don't have all my training shoes with me, but these are the current three that I have with me. And I'm specifically going into detail with regards to these three, but I'll touch on the other ones that I started with. So my first training shoe that I ever purchased or ever used was the Nike Free Trainer, and this was back about 8-9 years ago when it was really popular. And I actually had purchased two different kinds. The thing was, I really liked those shoes at the time. All hockey players, hockey trainers were using these shoes, but the problem was that they wore down pretty quickly. And I liked them because they were much more kind of flat sole, and they weren't kind of your typical shoe that had that was chunky or it had a lot of material with regards to it. So it was a much lighter kind of feeling when wearing those shoes. However, due to them wearing out over time and then them kind of just disappearing a little bit, I went and switched to these Crosby trainers here, these Reebok Crosby trainers here. Now, I must say these are probably the worst training shoes that I currently own today, and I don't use these anymore. And I'll specifically say why. So firstly, when we look at the shoe, there's just a lot of material to it. But if we look at the heel lift here, so the heel lift here is going to cause a slope. As we can see, there's a slope that's occurring. So when you put these on, you're going to shift your center of gravity forward. So when you think of lifts like squatting, deadlifting, when you put yourself in these types of shoes, you're going to cause that heel lift to occur, which may make it harder to sit back on a deadlift because you may cause a little bit more dorsiflexion, and therefore you may change the way the pressure or placement of your foot is with regards to these shoes. And so as you shift that center of gravity, it may make it a little bit more difficult to engage in the lift, but specifically with regards to that heel lift, we're also elevating our height as well. So now we're furthering the distance from the bar, so that bar is going to have to travel further because now we're further away, because we're making ourselves taller because of this heel lift and the way the height of the shoe, or the amount of height that the shoe adds to our frame. So this is why I don't like the shoe, just because yes, we have that center of gravity being shifted forward because of the heel lift, but also we're elevating ourselves. By shifting forward, we may lose some instability, and that could lead to maybe something like an injury or just put us in a more jeopardized or risky position. So after these shoes, I kind of went on to the New Balance Minimus, the 20 V3. So the New Balance Minimus 20 V3, that was actually a pretty decent shoe and a good shoe I liked. I don't have it here currently with me, but you guys can kind of just do a Google search. If you want to go on my Instagram, I actually have a photo of those shoes being posted. So the reason why I liked those shoes was because they were a flat sole. They were a flat sole, and I was closer to the ground, and they were very light. There wasn't much material to them. However, I won't really touch on those just because I don't have them here from a visual perspective to kind of go over, just because they wore out and I kind of threw them out. But moving on to my next shoe, I have these Under Armours here. And now I must admit, I haven't really spent too much time kind of looking into and studying footwear until the past year. And that was from learning from a few chiropractors that I'd seen present and talk about footwear, but also when I specifically kind of dabbed into the powerlifting community, their emphasis on footwear and just kind of learning from some powerlifters as well, why it's important to have appropriate footwear when doing lifts like squats and deadlifts. So here I have these Under Armour shoes. There's also, we see a cushion kind of here at the bottom. There's a slight heel lift, there's a heel lift, but in kind of proportion to the front of the shoe, there's a slight slope. It's not as bad as these shoes, but there's still a slight slope, which is going to still shift your center of gravity a little bit forward, and it's going to alter the mechanics of when you may do a squat or deadlift. But also we're raising ourselves or adding much more height to our frame when we're doing a deadlift. So these shoes would not be good to deadlift in just because we're raising our height, and therefore the bar may have to travel forward, but also we may get that shift in our center of gravity forward, which may cause us to dorsiflex a little bit more, and it may be harder to sit back in a deadlift. So these shoes, not a big fan, although I did use them for training for quite some time. And I've recently purchased these as my new training shoes, the Vibram 5 Fingers. Now these are my current go-to training shoes. Absolutely love these, and I recommend these, highly recommend these for training. Love the feeling when walking around in these, and I'll kind of touch on the advantages to these shoes. So number one, super light, not much material to them, very flexible, move all over. You don't get that kind of stiffness with regards to these Reeboks or even these Under Armour shoes. But here's the advantage when we compare this to the Minimus now. So the Minimus and the Vibram 5 Fingers, they both have the flat soles here. So the advantage there of the flat sole, obviously, or just being close to the ground, is you're obviously more closer to the ground. But what that does now, when you think of deadlifting, you're decreasing the distance that bar has to travel because you're closer to that bar. The same thing now we could look to a squat. So when we're squatting, we don't have that heel lift. So there's no heel lift, so our center of gravity is not shifting forward. We're in that neutral position now. Now the advantage of these compared to the Minimus is these toe pockets here. So we have that flexibility with regards to the toes, and I'll explain why this is highly beneficial in my opinion, is because now that we separate the toes, we can create more grip when we're kind of deadlifting or squatting. So when you think of it, with a regular shoe, like let's say these Under Armours, everything gets restricted in the shoe. The same thing would happen with a Minimus. And so when we restrict that movement with regards to our toes, those muscles within our toes just kind of become inactive. We don't tend to use them. And if we can utilize those on a squat or deadlift, we may be able to create a little bit more stability and therefore make our lift a little bit more efficiently. It may just be a little subtle difference, but that subtle difference can make a difference in the long run if we apply it. At the same time though, we're getting the benefits of just that movement on a daily basis from walking. We're using our toes when normally people just kind of forget to use them or don't use them because of the restriction within your normal shoes. And so by using them a little bit more and by engaging just kind of in more activity and producing more muscle activity with regards to those, we can kind of strengthen our feet, strengthen those muscles, and kind of produce more of that natural walking movement which we were born with. So there's a big benefit as to why I love these shoes. For walking, for weightlifting, specifically the bilateral lifts, squats, and deadlifts, just because you don't have the heel lift, it's a flat sole, and you also have that separation with regards to the toes, so you can utilize your toes, kind of grip the floor a little bit better, create a little bit more stability, in my opinion at least. And also very beneficial, if someone with maybe with flat feet even. If someone with flat feet, these would be a good shoe to kind of work out in or exercise in to kind of maybe address that issue, because you're mimicking that natural movement within the foot, within the toes, and you can kind of start strengthening those muscles that may be inhibited or weak. And you wouldn't be able to do that with these kind of shoes. You don't get that same movement, or even with these shoes either. And just putting an orthotic in one of these shoes would not be a good idea either, just because by putting that orthotic in, now you're just putting a temporary crutch in. And that was one of the primary reasons why I bought these shoes, was because when I was given orthotics, I was told to get away from a flat sole and get to one of these shoes, which you can utilize the orthotic better. Now that was just a big mistake, and that's what the kind of doctor told me at the time, but that's primarily the reason why I bought these shoes as opposed to going back to something like a Minimus or going to these 5 Fingers. But currently use these 5 Fingers today, and absolutely phenomenal, love them. Highly recommend them, great shoes if you're kind of looking to utilize or improve maybe bilateral lifts. And now you could now there's a little caveat here, you can just go kind of barefoot if you wanted to really, but not everyone has that opportunity or may not be comfortable doing that in a commercial setting, specifically with regards to a gym, which kind of maybe the majority of people that are watching this video right now. So these 5 Fingers, just a great kind of substitution or way to mimic that barefoot experience. So the only kind of issue that I've noticed with these is they can be a pain to get on in the beginning, just because I'm not, just for me starting to use these, I wasn't specifically used to them, and just starting to use them, they're hard to get your toes in the pockets of these little toe pockets here, which can be a little bit a pain to get on, and sometimes it may take you a few more minutes than usual, just opposed to maybe slipping on these shoes, which can be a bit of a hassle. But regardless, love the shoes, amazing. Those are the current training shoes that I use, what I recommend, and that's just kind of some tips that I want to share with you guys with regards to training shoes. Now, if you're someone that currently uses these 5 Fingers, or you use a Minimus, or you use maybe one of these shoes for training, I'd love to kind of hear your thoughts, what you use, why you use them. And if you're someone that wasn't familiar with kind of the mechanics with regards to kind of maybe something like this shoe with like a big heel lift and you weren't familiar with that, kind of also love to hear your thoughts and what you kind of just think about that. and if this video was helpful in any way. And also, if you want to see more training tips or performance tips, be sure to subscribe to my channel if you haven't already subscribed. Okay guys, that's it for today's video. I wish you guys all the best and a successful and productive day, and take care.